Caleb, give us your take on a Tennessee basketball team that played an exhibition against Indiana on Sunday. So what do you think of the Vols after being able to see them play? I don't know the definition of exhibition games, but it's a game. I mean, I don't know what all you draw away from that, how much game planning goes into it. But I guess I'm just asking you more along the lines of personnel and talent, what you think of this crew.
I think, and y'all stay with me here, even in a loss, this crew's better than last year's crew. And
okay. Now, you say that.
That's crazy.
Knowing that Dalton Connect is lighting it up as far as a true rookie can do in the NBA. You think this team can be better than last year's team without Dalton Connect?
Yes, so let's talk about what happened yesterday. Because it looked like a Rick Barnes coach team pre-Dalton Connect. And I understand where people are coming from with that. And what's a Rick Barnes coach team pre-Dalton Connect, Dave? The defense is always there, and they're annoyingly, insanely streaky on offense. Is that fair to say?
Yes, and they're streaky because I want to take it a step further. They don't have an answer offensively. If you want to take the Princetons, for instance, that run a lot of the back cuts and those sorts of things, they may go through a slow streak of scoring, but you know that they're going to start scoring more points. If you have a superstar like Dalton Connect, which I didn't think Rick Barnes was going to be willing to do this last year, but he did. Kudos to him. He would say, we're going to run some ISO ball because we've got one of the best scorers in the nation, and here we go. And he finished number 2 in the nation to Zach Edey, who is a freak of nature and won 2-time college football or college basketball player of the year. So Dalton Connect would have been the college basketball player of the year last year. So again, I can't overstate how important I thought he was in those sorts of moments when Tennessee had to have a point. But how do they manufacture points if they get in a slow streak now?
Well, and here's where we get to the debate. You're right. And the problem with Tennessee in the past with Rick Barnes, when they don't have an answer, that's why with Rick Barnes' slow streaks, it's not like a 2 or 3 minute scoring drought. It becomes like a 10-minute scoring drought. So a 27-point lead could evaporate for Tennessee back in the day because they wouldn't score. I do think it's different this time. And I think it's more like last year's team. And the reason I think they'll be better, let me point this out. Tennessee shot, again, we'll talk to streakiness. They shot 8 of 35 from 3, which is abysmal yesterday, below 24%. Now, you would come to me and say, well, that's proof. They were streaky, they had an off day shooting, and they lost. That's how you would frame it to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They managed 62 points yesterday, despite shooting that badly from 3. That is very reflective of last year's team. There were 3 times they shot below 25% from 3 last year. 62 was the most they scored in any of those games last year. So they're matching what they were able to do last year offensive production-wise with poor three-point shooting. Now, you could come back at me and say, well, what if their three-point shooting is not going to be as good as last year? The individuals on this team, as a collective, the numbers show they made more threes per game last year and had a higher three-point shooting percentage last year. So I can tell you straight up right now, they're going to be a better three-point shooting team this year. They are. So
okay, they're not. But you and I know, here's my problem with your assertion that this team could be better than last year's team. You and I know that you can go cold shooting the 3. Even Ray Allen and Reggie Miller have gone cold shooting the 3. And a lot of times for young men in college, it can happen on the big stage of the NCAA tournament.
What I'm trying to say, though, Dave, is they still prove they can manufacture points when they're really, really bad from 3. They scored 62 on a horrible shooting night from 3. Back in the old Rick Barnes days, they're in the low 50s with that. And so what happened yesterday? Chaz Lanier, 2 of 12 from 3. He's going to be their primary scorer. He's not going to go 2 of 12 from 3 most of the year. On top of that, what did Zakai Ziegler do? He got to the free throw line a lot, and he hit 7 of 8 free throws. This is going to be what Tennessee does. When it's not going to be Dalton Connect ISO. What it's going to be, Dave, this year, it's going to be get Zakai Ziegler to the free throw line. Somehow get him to the line to get him to, because he's reliable from the free throw line. Now, one of the big things that held them back yesterday, that's also not going to be a thing. Darlington Dubar, who as a profile is built like Dalton Connect. You may not think he's as good. I'm not saying he will be as good, but that's who Rick Barnes got to replace Dalton Connect. A wing who shoots roughly 40% from three, who's like 6'8". He only played 6 minutes yesterday. Rick Barnes said he didn't play much because he hasn't figured out the defense yet, which is fine. Maybe it takes him a minute. That's what these players do. A lot of these offensive guys at the lower level, Dave, this, are trying to become NBA players. They commit to Tennessee to learn the defense.
Yeah, or maybe it's an effort thing. I mean, a lot of times that's 50-50. Kids don't like playing defense. It's not as fun.
That's true, but I think
that's still a way to. I'm not saying it's a long-term problem. I'm saying that's a way to poke him in an exhibition game.
Yeah, that's possible. You're right. Dubar committed to Tennessee wanting to learn defense too. And so Rick Barnes could be poking him, doing whatever. I don't think Rick Barnes is going to keep Darlington Dubar on the bench for 6 minutes a game and only play him 6 minutes a game throughout the year because he hasn't picked up the defense. Do you think that, Dave? Do you think Barnes is that? Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Unless he is just horrid. Unless he is Allen Houston defensively.
That's a good.
I mean, seriously. I mean, Allen Houston under Rick Barnes wouldn't have worked out. And I know that sounds insano, but if he hadn't have played better defense, it wouldn't have worked out. And his dad's not going to make him play better defense. It's just like the little league son thing.
Well, I mean, to be fair though, this has always been Rick Barnes' fault because Chris Lofton wasn't going to work out either. Chris Lofton, it wasn't an effort issue with Chris Lofton. He was too short and he was too slow to be a good on-ball defender.
What's our poll question on the YouTube page?
So the poll question is: are you concerned after Tennessee's exhibition loss to Indiana? 67% say no, it's an exhibition game. 34% say yes, they missed Dalton Connect.
There you go. Caleb doesn't tease it forward. I just wanted the answers.
My bad.
It's all right. There's no gambling when it comes to Medicare Misty. There's no questioning. It's just know that you get great Medicare advice. No charge from her, licensed in over 40 states. So wherever you're watching this, you can take advantage of Medicare Misty's services. So I don't find it possible to predict, Caleb, that one team is going to go further in the NCAA tournament. And here's why. Aside from those UNLV teams or those Duke teams where it was championship or bust, the NCAA tournament, you have to get a little bit lucky, right?
You have to.
So I'm not at the end of the year going to say, oh, this team just made the Sweet 16. So Caleb, you can stick it. They're not as good as the Dalton Connect team. But I'm asking you, if the two teams matched up, and I realize you would have overlaps, Guy Ziegler, but if we did a simulation and the two teams matched up, who do you really think would win? Brought to you by Medicare Misty.
19 years this year. Well, I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
Okay, total hypothetical. This team matures. This team grows into itself, much like last year's basketball team did. They meet on March the 1st in a simulation game that we might even do on a PlayStation 5 at some point. Who wins?
This one. And there's a couple there's a couple of reasons. You can bring up Dalton Connect. I can bring up one. I think Chaz Lanier is going to get better, and Darlington Dubar. Tennessee's got more options on this team. And then there's another big reason. I like Tennessee's bigs better this year. I like Igor Milichik Jr. It provides more versatility in a lot of ways.
I believe that's a different type of player, correct me if I'm wrong, than Rick Barnes has ever had in his career. A true stretch forward that can step outside and shoot.
Oh, that's a total. You are right about that. He's a totally different type of player, which adds another offensive weapon, which also allows Barnes play two bigs at one time. There's another layer to this. Now, again, if Santiago Vescovi were totally right last year, mentally and physically, we might be having a different conversation because Tennessee might have won the national title last year. I don't want to throw him under the bus because he was going through a lot last year, but you and I both know.
Passed away, was not a good fit for the offense that they changed up on and off the court. He had a tough year.
Yes, had a very tough year. I think they don't have that liability among anybody in their rotation this year. And here's the other part. Mentally, Felix Opera or Jonas Adu? Who are you taking? Felix Opera. And I'm taking JP Estrella. Jonas Adu is...
I can't argue with that Felix versus Jonas thing. You got me on that one.
He's soft. Jonas Adu is one of the most mentally soft players that exist in basketball. And
his play reminds me of what's considered one of the all-time greats. We talked about him last week, and I'm not trying to throw him under the bus either, but Vincent Eberle had all the physical ability to be a superstar in the NBA, but he was soft. And I don't know that you ever get over that.
No, you don't. And let's think about what you're doing if you're Jonas Adu to go play for John Calipari. You're not a one-and-done guy. Why are you doing that, Dave? You're running from pressure. Don't you know? I mean, Rick Barnes stuck his neck out for Jonas right after that tournament loss last year. It was Twitter that led him to bolt and go to Arkansas. He was upset with things he was seeing about him on Twitter. If you really cared about your development, wouldn't you stay with Rick Barnes instead of bolt for John Calipari? Who's going to develop you better?
I'll tell you, I haven't told you yet. After this weekend, I'm getting a flip phone. I'm not joking. I might have my calls directed to a flip phone Stetson minute stop because Caleb and I promised each other we'd take some time off, and I'm sitting there responding to all our YouTube comments, and we love it when you comment on the YouTuber.